End of episode 2 of While We Wait.
So, welcome to the after show of While We Wait, Whiskey Edition. Tonight, we are going to be drinking
Chivas.
Chivas. Where were you first introduced to Chivas?
Oh, my goodness. That was in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And I had never had it before, and I tasted some. I'm like, oh, wow, this is marvelous. And so that entire vacation, which, by the way, was my 30th anniversary,
Hey.
that was what I wanted to drink. I tried the other ones, and this was the best that they had there. And I'm like, this is good, you know. So, yeah.
Oh, I remember the phone calls from that vacation.
Oh, really?
You going, this is the best stuff I've ever had. I've got the good bracelet that lets me go get the good stuff from the bar upstairs.
Yes, that's right.
That's the good stuff.
There were different bars. There was definitely a class of bars at the resort, and at the regular ones they didn't have this. You had to, and I don't know how we got into the special one, but I'm glad we did. It was good stuff.
Well, why don't I pour us a little bit?
Here we go.
I guess I turn off the cork. Not a cork, it's a screw on it.
Yeah.
Just to the hip.
Yeah.
Just to the hip.
Rue would like just a little sip.
All right.
That's a very nice label.
It is a very nice label. I like the silver, the gold, and the crimson. You've got a 12-year aged. So let's start with some smell notes.
Okay. Cassie, could you hit the sleep on the
microwave?
On the microwave.
I don't know where my microphone went. Oh.
There's a very clean smell to it.
It is.
It's not overly, I don't want to say the word overly complex, but there's something just nice and fresh, almost water-like about the smell. In the way that
it's very clean.
Yeah, like a good mineral water.
So some whiskeys will they will assault your nose, right? I mean, they'll grab onto
good
it.
Mineral oil.
Yeah. and this is it smells very clean.
Yeah.
I'm getting notes of green apple and caramel.
Yeah.
It reminds me.
Interesting is a lot of people say green apple, but growing up here in Utah, especially around the University of Utah, they had a lot of crabapple trees. And my after-school program in elementary school was connected to the University of Utah. So we would go all around the university all the time. And that's where you and Mom graduated from. That's where I graduated from. That's where Cassie graduated from.
Yeah.
And there were always crabapple trees everywhere when I was growing up. And I remember as a kid reaching up and taking bites at them. They were so sour.
Yeah.
But they were also delicious.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, there was a very botanical smell to the skin of a crabapple. And that's what I'm getting. It's so clean, fresh, but there's that acidity bite in kind of a fun way that reminds me of that as a child.
So do you get, you can't smell salt, but I'm smelling, maybe it's just because I'm thinking of salt and caramel apple. You know, the green apple that they would dip in the caramel that you get at the carnival. That's what I'm thinking of. And somehow I'm getting saltiness with that out of a smell. Which
I'm getting that as well. But for me, it's a little bit more of the Oregon coastline on like an overcast day where you're kind of walking on the beach. It's about 65 degrees. You've got that very soft spray coming off the ocean.
Kind of humid, very
cool.
Yeah.
Might be a good day to fly a kite, but when you lick your lips, they're saltier than they should be.
Yes.
And when you breathe in, there's something to that mineraliness. That's kind of the mineraliness I was talking about. It's the salt, that kind of that salt spray feeling.
Yeah.
That makes you go, oh, I'm on the coast. That's a fun feeling.
I could visit the Oregon coast again. That would be really nice.
To go back. All right. Should we dive into a taste?
Sounds good.
All right. Slunja.
Oh, that is really nice.
Smooth.
Very smooth. I had forgotten because it's been a long time since we've had this bottle a long time.
Yeah.
I get a little bit of like a black pepper. It just kind of bites the edges of your tongue, and then it smooths out. It's got a very clean finish.
Yeah, but I was attributing it to more of like a peaty flavor. But black pepper, like the end. So if you think of black pepper as kind of this curve of flavor, it snaps at the top,
right,
and then comes out to this kind of dull earthiness at the end. And that's very similar to what you're getting. So I think a black pepper note is really a solid Solid flavor. Where do you see yourself while drinking it? Close your eyes and think about it. Give yourself a couple of
Well,
seconds.
you've put me on the Oregon coast, but I'm back in Costa Rica.
I bet you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that this whiskey will always in my brain be in that we were right on the coast. And so we did have a lot of that ocean spray, and so that's I think that's where it would take me.
Definitely. Like, there's something about that, but it's not just your experience as Lading does, because I'm getting those notes too from never having gone to Costa Rica. We both got those kind of minerally salt notes that make you think of the coast and the ocean.
Now, what I think is interesting is I hadn't really thought about it. This is kind of an interesting whiskey for me, being that I know when I first tasted it. And it is really tied back to that. And so we were on vacation.
Yeah.
And so when I drink this, I immediately feel relaxed, and I'm like, okay, I'm somewhere where I enjoy being.
Yeah.
And not every whiskey is like that, because a lot of whiskeys you buy and you bring home and you taste them, and they're not tied to a particular event, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Is it certain, like, for both of us, one that I can name that would be a fun memory to revisit is Middleton Extra Rare.
Oh, yeah.
Might be the most wonderful whiskey we've ever tried.
Yeah.
And you and I had that glass in Ireland. We shared a glass, because it was like, what, €24 or something crazy like that?
I think it was, I remember it being like close to $50. I don't.
Yeah, $50, but I think it was like 24 to 26 euro.
Yeah.
And the dollar was not doing great at that time.
Yeah, right.
So it was like, both of us were like, ooh, this is and you and I spent maybe 2 hours smelling that glass.
Yeah.
Because we finished, it was a phenomenal glass, and we should have this whole conversation at the time.
So we do have some.
Oh, I know we do.
We will definitely have to do an episode where we talk all about that, and we explain about the restaurant that we were in where we did that. So we'll do that another time.
But that's a fun one. Yeah. That is a whiskey that is connected to a memory.
Yeah.
And this serves kind of a similar purpose to a different memory.
Yeah, right.
One that I'm not connected to, but I'm definitely picking up the essence of that through the whiskey, which is kind of a fun thing that you can do while enjoying a glass of something with someone that you care about.
Well, that's one of the nice things about drinking whiskey. Not everyone enjoys drinking whiskey, but I think it has a lot of flavor. It's got a lot of aromas, and it's very complex. And you can get really harsh whiskeys. You can get really smooth whiskeys. You can have very floral whiskeys. Now, they probably don't know. We've talked about this many times. I prefer a Scotch.
Oh yeah.
And you prefer
a bourbon.
So in Scotland, you can have a very smoky, peaty Lagavulin type thing from the coast. Or you can get a very delicate, floral, gentle whiskey from the Highlands. And so there's that complexity in the whiskey that you don't have to drink a bottle. Like I said, this bottle we've probably had for 10 years.
Yeah.
No, it can't be 10 years.
No, it's 3 years plus my age, so 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's probably about 6 years.
Yeah, because I'm 33.
Yeah.
It was 3 years that you were married before I came along.
Okay.
So I always know that your anniversary is 3 years before my age.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So they stick around. We've talked about our collection of whiskey as being a whiskey library.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to taste a little bit of the. It's fun to taste a little bit of the whiskey and then put it away for a few years and then come back to it and see what you remember about it. Or if you try a new whiskey, you're like, this reminds me of such and such a whiskey, and you go rummaging through it and try to compare them. I think that's a lot of fun. That's an enjoyable way of enjoying your whiskey. Good way of enjoying whiskey. It was redundant. So, Cassie, do you have thoughts about whiskey? No. Yeah, there you go.
No, I don't have a lot of thoughts. I like blue corn whiskey.
The blue corn whiskey was from New Mexico or Arizona?
No,
New Mexico?
New Mexico.
Yeah.
Don Quixote.
I remember that whiskey. That was really, really good. But you're not a whiskey drinker for the most part. Most women aren't. Is it because you're more sensitive to flavors and it's an overwhelming flavor, or what is it about whiskey that I wouldn't say turns you off, but makes it not your favorite?
I think it just depends on the whiskey. A lot of them are harsh.
Yeah, you can come back in. We're talking. Thanks for not taking the microphone into the bathroom.
You are very welcome. I got some much needed feedback on bringing that with me. I appreciate the feedback.
You're gonna get some audio that says, I can't find my mic. I lost my mic. No, I had clipped it to myself. I thought it was in my pocket.
I've washed many an ear pod.
Yeah.
Earpod,
They
earpod,
they don't work after that.
not so well.
No.
Okay, so we were back on a coastal conversation. We were exploring this whiskey and the memories it evoked. But what are some of the fun thoughts? Like, let's take a sip and let's play a little game. Let's add a couple components to a story.
Okay.
So take a sip. Give me a place to start from.
New Orleans.
Okay. Ooh, we're in a smoky jazz club, but people are smoking cigars. So there's that light tobacco-y flavor. It's not the acridness of a cigarette.
Right.
It's that full-bodied flavor of a cigar mixed with music and jazz. And it's warm and humid, but there's these floral notes throughout the club.
I get a lot of jazz, or not a lot of jazz, but a lot of saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
Some deep bassy saxophone.
Yeah.
And then some riffs on electric guitar.
There's intrigue. There's a lot of shadows to it, but there's also that kind of lively tempo of maybe a kind of a Caribbean vibe, which might be me influenced by your story, but that kind of, there's a funness to it and I definitely see like a female protagonist in a very brightly colored dress.
So I was going to say, we got the smoke from the cigars in here, and it's dimly lit, not like this. It's dimly lit, but there's a spotlight on the stage, and a young woman comes out with very curly, dark brown hair, and a deep, breathy voice.
Oh. Now, English, Spanish.
It'd be better if it was Spanish.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, kind of a rolling cadence jazz. Not a contralto, but maybe an alto. Contralto is a little, I love a contralto voice on a woman, but an alto voice would be really cool mixed with some jazz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. It's fun how you can build a story out of a flavor, a smell. I mean, that's what storytelling really is we're compiling these little pieces of our entire life into a narrative that we're trying to get someone to go, hey, feel what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've been following some of the videos that I've been doing lately, but I've been visiting libraries in Salt Lake County.
Oh, yeah.
And I've now come across 3 libraries that have a small amphitheater outside where they've got a cement, it's just a cement little wall that you can sit on with grass in between.
Yeah.
And it's 4 or 5 levels.
Yeah.
And then there's like a stand in the front. And I'm sure they must have a band come out there and do it.
Yeah.
But I think I would love to I'd love to sit down there and have a real storyteller come out and tell me an original story and evoke the kinds of images that we've been talking about, where they really draw you into the story and you feel like you're there.
Yeah.
I think a story where you lose the point of where I am when I'm listening and where I am in the story, when you become a part of that story, that to me is just supreme storytelling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you think about as a child, the stories that you retain, a lot of them seem to be that kind of campfire story. That we're sitting around a fire and someone is telling us, they're not reading from a book. They're not, pulling something off their phone. They're kind of just telling their version of the story. And with all folklore storytelling, it changes based on the storyteller each time. And that adds a layer of complexity, like adding a new spice onto it. So sometimes when you get a story that is passed down from generation to generation, you're like, that's rich and deep and really fun.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get some stories that you're like, that's a deep fried Twinkie and that was fun. But I'm pretty sure the hook hand guy is not going to get me tonight. right? You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, but it's fun. You enjoyed that deep fried Twinkie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And when you were 11, you all huddled together and went Hulk scraping down the right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I like the similarity between cooking and adding spice and writing and telling a story and adding those different nuances in there that maybe don't bang you over the head with a flavor.
Yeah.
And in the story, they could be just a whisper or a thought or a memory of something that you can't really put your finger on, but it gives you a feeling.
Yeah.
It could be a fun feeling. It could be a scary feeling that you don't quite understand. But, but I think that it interacts with your emotions. And I think that eating, it evokes emotions.
Yeah.
Just like storytelling does.
So if we're going to talk about eating and storytelling, the one thing that I've come to terms with that I think you and I struggled with for a long time in cooking, but maybe even in storytelling, is the idea is there's a recipe. You have to follow the recipe to the letter. The recipe is important. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the recipe is not. The recipe is a guideline. And then you let what your family likes influence, or what makes you comfortable influence that. And that's what makes a story rich, is when you start pulling pieces of your human experience into that writing. But at the same time, as you look at a recipe and you're like, my family is not going to like that much salt.
Yeah.
Or that's too much pepper for this. Or we need a hell of a lot of turmeric to make this taste good. Right?
Talk about earthiness.
Earthiness, yeah.
So do you remember, you were, I want to say you were around 15 to 17, if you remember this. Okay. You came home one time and you told me about this dish. You'd been on a date, maybe with Cassie, and you told me about, hey, we had this dish at the restaurant. Yeah. And it was delicious, and you described it. Could we try to make something like that? There was no recipe. We went out and we bought ingredients that you remembered. Yeah. You described it to me, and we made something. And I doubt very much that it was identical to what you tasted. Yeah. But that was a fun experience. That was a fun exercise to do. I think it would be a lot of fun to have someone tell you a little bit of a story, and then have like a group kind of go around and do what we were doing, where we try to write a story together and add different parts of that story and try to fill it in. That could be a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
Now, let's connect it back to food.
Okay.
What if we made roulotte and had a couple of friends over and we told a little bit of story about Nam?
Okay, so you got to give a little bit of background. So roulotte or prosciutto is a beef that has bacon and mustard and some pickles, and it's rolled up.
It's a traditional German dish, right? That my great grandmother, your grandmother, made all the time,
right?
And it was my favorite dish. Yeah, well, one of. She actually was a quite accomplished cook.
Okay, but it had to have the handmade noodles.
Oh, the spätzle, yeah. Of course it had to have it.
Of course.
And it wasn't.
What kind of comment
is that? But yes, it was, and it was such a treat when she made it. And I remember making it with her. I remember because, you and Mom were both working professionals as I was a child. So there was a lot of time that I went and I would spend nights with her, or after school, you guys would I got to take my lunch break, run, go grab me, drop me off at her, and then go back to work.
Right.
Because you guys were working night shifts, all sorts of crazy stuff. So I spent a lot of time with her. And cooking with her was one of my favorite things.
Oh, that's cool.
It was a lot of fun. But she was such a personality.
Yeah.
My goodness. And I think for both of us that dish holds a particular comforting sense to it. But it'd be fun to share it with people that don't have the background of where it comes from and talk to them about where their mind goes.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. Just let the dish evoke an emotion in them and pull that out. That could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Throw out a question here and there and guide people. Hey, tell me, what are you thinking about this subject? And then add that to the greater story and create a short story that's kind of fun and party based.
You know what I find the biggest problem with that scenario?
Yeah.
Neither one of us really like people. We don't people well.
There are
And you're-
people that I like,
Yes, absolutely.
but
you're,
they're few and far between.
you're talking about hosting a dinner party, and I don't see us hosting a dinner party together. Not without a lot of alcohol.
I'm essentially just guiding you into Dungeons and Dragons right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's narrative storytelling for a group.
You know, so many authors are into D&D, and
Because it's a training ground for creating stories off the top of your head.
And I have never participated in that.
I'm going to get you there. We'll get you there. But, I mean, I used to run youth programs. One of the coolest things I learned was how to play Dungeons and Dragons. And this was some of my friends that I was working with at the time.
Yeah.
But what made it fun is it was like, oh, we're going to tell a story together. And the person who's conducting it, they're just guiding you and giving you some prompts and stuff. And then you're going to let random chance roll a 20-sided die on whether or not it's going to happen.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you add that random element to it, and then you have to tell stories off of it. You do that with children. I was doing with kids that were as young as 6 years old, all the way up to teenagers at 18. And they're just like, this is the coolest thing we've ever done. Like I used to have like 6 or 8 kids around me and one D20. And we would sit there and we're like, okay, you see this field in front of us. Now let's start adding in characters. Let's make this a big battle. Let's put in, and the kids started going, I want a trebuchet over there. I want a catapult over there. Can I have 20 orcs in that corner? And I'm like, yes. And they're like, okay, they're going to connect together. How are we going to deal with that? Let's roll the die. Let's see what their ability to sneak up on the enemy is like.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to poke you a little bit.
Oh, please do.
I have been trying to get you to write for the longest time.
I know.
And I know you write short stories and you write ideas down, but what you just described is just rich with storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't mean the D&D. I mean your experience with Salt Lake City Youth and Family.
Yeah, the Division of Youth and Family.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City, yeah.
I mean, I could see you writing a story about one of your afternoons with the kids when 20 orcs came across Sugar House Park, okay, or Liberty Park, or wherever you were. I think and what you try to do with the kids, and I could see that being a fun young adult book that you would enjoy writing. I don't think it would be hard for you to write based on your personal experiences. I think it would come out pretty easily.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of fun.
Could be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. I enjoyed going back to Costa Rica with this.
Good. I'm glad.
Was a lot of fun.
This was a fun choice. We'll have to pick another one that kind of evokes some of these fun memories.
Well, I think that pretty soon we're going to have to do the Middleton Extra Rare.
I mean, that's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut.
I think we got to build up to that one.
Okay, maybe we'll save that for a few episodes later.
If we could make it to 10, maybe that's where we'll hang out at 10.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right.
Thanks.
Salud.
Salud. Cool.